Hi, I'm Tristan, and today I'd like to talk about soloing, specifically electric guitar soloing. So what makes up a good guitar solo? What makes it engaging? What makes it compelling? One good guy to look at is Jimmy Page. He was an avid student of the blues, obviously. He did sort of his apprenticeship in the Yardbirds with some of the greatest guitarists of his generation. They all knew these old blues records, inside and out, backwards and forwards. They were using the vocabulary. When he started his own band, he didn't have any material really, so they would just jam a lot. They would do a lot of improvisation. So he got to find out what worked in front of big crowds. Basically, he took these blues tricks and got to use them on an industrial scale. One of these tricks is call and response. You ask a question, then you answer it, then you elaborate on your answer. Next comes a rhythmic motif. You lock into it, and then you expand on it. You get the audience hooked, and then start building it. You go up through each position of the scale. Another really good example of a rhythmic motif in his catalog is the end solo in Black Dog. You can practically tap that rhythm out on your knee. Really hooky. The next thing I want to address is melody. What do we mean when we say melodic soloing? What is melody? Well, it's made up of single notes. Scales and intervals can be applied certainly, and it helps to know them inside out. But I find it more useful to think of them as chord tones. Literally the notes that make up each chord in the progression. How do you use them? As target notes. Try landing on them on the strong beats, like any quarter note for a start. This connects you to the underlying music in a powerful way and gives your solo a lot of emotional oomph. To illustrate, I'm going to use a very well-known example that features chord tones so strongly that you can probably hear the chart without any accompaniment. Almost every chord in this progression is telegraphed powerfully with either the root, the third, or the fifth. Basically the three notes that make up the triad of each chord. Check it out. I'm pretty sure that Joe Walsh was not thinking about triads and chord tones when he was playing this. He probably just thought it sounded cool. If you want to use this in your improvisation, I would suggest that you do learn the triad shapes of every chord, like all over the neck, and then you can just kind of use them intuitively. But by no means should you confine yourself just to the notes of the triad. There's plenty of other intervals that make great target notes. Fourths, sevenths, ninths, these lend themselves really well to suspension and resolution. Just think of yourself like a chef throwing in different flavors. Experiment with different intervals, see how they make you feel, and then just use them accordingly. The next subject I'd like to introduce is economy. We've kind of reached the outer limits of what's possible with practice and study. We're only 2 clicks away from seeing a 9-year-old kid, say, do something mind-boggling technically. But sometimes you can say a hell of a lot more with just one note. And to that end, I'm going to play you a clip from Jimi Hendrix' Band of Gypsies. The tune is called Machine Gun. About 4 minutes in, something happens that guitarists of my generation just generally refer to as the note. I'm going to play it for you, and you're going to see why. Check it out. It's worth picking up this recording and just listening to it from the beginning because the build is so incredible. There's this ominous mood. The tension just keeps growing and growing until he starts the solo at about 4 minutes in with this note, and the payoff emotionally is incredible. It just explodes. And that brings me to the next topic, which is will or intent. Artistic intent specifically. What are you trying to say? The guitar itself can function as sort of like the Greek chorus, commenting on the lyric, expanding on the subject matter. It doesn't have to be just an expression of your virtuosity. Whenever you're playing, you're actually saying something, whether you realize it or not. So sometimes it kind of helps to think about what it is that you want to say. Jimi Hendrix, once again, was very, very good at this. The Machine Gun was a heavy statement coming from a black man in 1969. I also have to mention his incendiary performance of the Star Spangled Banner at Woodstock. Once again, like a heavy statement. Taking something that's really sacred to a lot of people, the national anthem, and completely deconstructing it and making it a commentary on a very unpopular war, complete with sound effects, screaming, tracers, rockets firing, airplanes crashing, ambulances. He quotes taps at one point, which is they play for soldiers when they're lowered into a grave. It's a heavy statement and a really effective use of noise and effects to get his point across. To me, it stands alone as just the highest achievement of what you can actually do with just a guitar and will, intent. That brings me to the next point, bravery, surfing the line between chaos and control. Have a good vocabulary and a nice practice technique, but when it comes time to go off, go the fuck off. To paraphrase Hunter S. Thompson, you don't know where the edge is until you go over it. That's what made Jimi Hendrix so exciting and the biggest concerto of his day. Every festival had to have him, and he broke box office records consistently in spite of the fact that he didn't really have any hits. Here's a couple more famous guitar solos by famous guitar players, and at least what I think it is that they're trying to say. I'm going to wrap up with something that I think encapsulates everything that I've discussed so far. It's got a repeated motif that cycles through the changes. It makes really clear use of chord tones. It's got a beautiful payoff at the end, like a beautiful singing high note. And best of all, it has story. The song is Europa by Santana, but the working title was Mushroom Lady. He improvised it to help calm down a lady who was tripping on mushrooms and having a hard time of it. So it has a really clear intent. It's like he's speaking, and he's speaking so clearly that I can almost hear the words. Check it out. definitely encourage you to explore other forms of music and bring it into your playing. There's a lot of fetishizing of classic rock. There's hundreds and hundreds of years of music behind it. All the concepts that I've talked about here have been explored much more thoroughly in jazz and in classical. You can hear them in Bach, and you can also hear them in Miles Davis. So listen to other stuff, not just rock, not just guitar playing, and bring it into your thing. And if you like this, found it useful, hit subscribe. If you didn't like it, you can all have your money back. I'm just kidding. There's like 1 million copyright strikes on this video already. I'm sure there's no money in this. But yeah, if you like it, and I'll see you next time.